What an act to follow. Oh my God. Are you guys ready to rock and roll? Yeah? Well, I'm Geina, and I'm an acupuncturist, and I work in an operating room, and it's a lot like working backstage at a concert. How do I know this? Allow me to catch you up to speed in the words of Wayne and Garth. When I was a little kid, I wanted to be a doctor. My dad wanted me to be a doctor also, so much so he gave me a Taber's Medical Dictionary when I was in the 4th grade. My grandparents, they gave me a guitar because they liked how I sang. By the time I was in the 8th grade, I spent all my time in my bedroom listening to records and not doing my science homework. I was thinking about my science teacher. His name was Mr. Jones. He had a huge crush on me. And he wrote in my yearbook that year, Geina, life won't wait while you make mistakes. You need to approach it with more enthusiasm. And then he enthusiastically instructed me to write I will not talk on the blackboard yet another 100 times. I was a cheeky and chatty little girl, and I knew I had a gift for gab, and I knew that if I could find a way to take this skill set and make money, I'd make a lot of money. So I found myself a job at a radio station. It was the late 1900s, and I had Farrah Fawcett hair. I played these little records called 45s. I met the love of my life that year. His name was rock and roll, and I married my career. I had the best job on the planet. I had groupies. I was offered drugs and sex on the request line. I was offered payola by record companies, and I had this really weird opportunity to be the first female ring announcer for the WWF. I actually stood in the ring, and I said, weighing in at 500 pounds, 7 foot 5 inches in corner number 1, Andre the Giant! It was one of the more bizarre career highlights I've experienced. By the mid-'80s, I got a job at Chrysalis Records, and I was a promotions manager. I babysat rock stars. I kissed a lot of ass worldwide, and I made a lot of friends. Those are not my friends. Those were my coworkers, and working with them was a lot like herding kittens, and it was exhausting, and it was not brain surgery, and it was wearing me out. I needed to find a new job. I needed to figure out something else. It was my own personal startup. By the time I was 35 years old, life got serious. I was in the music industry for 16 years. I lived in San Francisco. The city was in the middle of a severe AIDS epidemic and a heroin epidemic, and all my friends were falling like flies. They were strung out. I was surrounded by junkies, and it was awful. I was in a really dark period, and I started listening for the voice to tell me what I needed to do next in my life. I listened to that little girl, and I heard this voice say acupuncture. It had helped me so much during this dark period, balance myself. So I took the leap. I walked through this door of opportunity, quit my job, and I found myself in another sort of prison, and it was being an adult in school. I was surrounded by other corporate escapees and ashram junkies, and we had to wade through the piles of poorly translated Chinese medicine text in order to learn. It was like the Shawshank Redemption. It sucked. But 3 years later, I overheard my teachers having a really passionate conversation, and I could actually understand what they were saying. And I realized I could not only speak Chinese, but I knew a little bit about Chinese medicine. So I took my board exams, and it was the most difficult thing that I've ever done in my life. And I hung out my shingle, and like most startups, it was really slow. My parents were really worried about my well-being. My mom said, what if this doesn't work? And I said, failure's not an option. That was the only exit plan that I had. And I worked really hard, and I marketed, and I waited, and the patients eventually came. So catch this. Now I don't work with rock stars. I work with this constellation of stars. They're my patients, and they're these doctors and these scientists at the University of Colorado School of Medicine who have actually invited me into the operating room and into an embryo lab to teach the Western medical students a little bit about Chinese medicine. And when those students ask me for advice, I tell them something a little different than what Mr. Jones told me. I say, do not body slam your patients. And there are no mistakes in life, especially when you live it with enthusiasm and you keep learning. And with my 5 minutes on this stage rapidly expiring, I hear another voice inside of my head, and it's a voice of my dad who passed just 6 weeks ago. And he's saying, Stop talking about what you're gonna do, Geina, and just go do it. I miss my dad. Thank you guys so much. Keep learning.